Hello, alpha males. Welcome to Alpha Male Podcast, the podcast where we talk about what it means to be a man the right way, strong, dominant, and in control, made in the very image of God. We don't apologize for that. Today is going to be another episode in the backcountry bug out A.A.R. kind of lineage. This time was a mountaineering exercise. Some really steep, rugged country in the Bitterroot. Bitterroot is a range on the northern part of Idaho-Montana border, I believe part of the Rocky Mountains. Some very steep, rugged country. I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I'm not like climbing a cliff face with a pickaxe, but I'm talking about really steep terrain, more vertical than horizontal sometimes, where you have to use arms and legs in order to navigate. So more of a mountaineering exercise if you've been listening to these in sequence, if you listen to the last ones. You probably hear the ambiance, a beautiful creek running down this really rugged gorge. Did another episode for you guys earlier today when I took a lunch break on the tactical divide on gunfighter life. But by God's grace, made it to the rendezvous point early, relatively uninjured. And I want to use that time to share this blessing with you. The after action report, not just blessing me, but blessing you. That's kind of why the podcast is here, right? Iron sharpening iron, to make godly men strong and strong men godly. I tried to remember to take quite a few notes today and do an after action report. So this backcountry bug out episode doesn't just benefit me, but it benefits all of us. So without further ado, we'll start getting in to this episode. Now for this expedition, it was God Almighty who is always with me, myself, and Alexander Hamilton, Rhodesian Ridgeback extraordinaire, who is chilling just below me, pretty steep terrain. He did real good today. I had to save him some trouble one time by God's grace. He had a harness and I was able to haul him up some terrain he couldn't get up. But other than that, he did really good. The bug out bag / backcountry bag, I have a big bag. I have my small baby bug out bag, which I will put stuff into the big bug out bag, but I have a large bag that I use for hunting, that I plan on taking to Alaska, that I've had for a long time, that I do these things with, and that is the Everly Stock Gun Runner. And some things I did for this expedition, since it was mountaineering, I did grab a pretty good section of rope, and I put a Mora knife on there. Keep raving about the Mora knife, and guys in the chat, if you don't know, there's an insider chat for patrons, and, kind of to see what it's all about. I put a Mora knife on the pack today, one, because it's lighter than the hatchet, and I'm going up some pretty steep terrain, so that was just a slight modification. Diet today, in addition to the creek water, or stream is a better, stream water, was wild carrots, wild dandelions by God's grace, salted peanuts, and cocoa nibs.
Quest bar.
And some very melted, those little keto cups are like chocolate and peanut butter. Before I get into the rest of the notes, I just grabbed some more stream water. If you guys want to grab a beverage and gather around, and we'll kick off in the notes of this A.A.R. First, in my notes, if you're going to drink out of a stream, and it's a stream you're unfamiliar with, as I've never hiked this terrain, this particular area before, it's a good idea, if you have a container, to put the water in the container and then hike quite a bit upstream to make sure there's nothing glaringly obvious right upstream from what you're drinking, right? Like a dead deer, a dead elk, a dead salmon, right? It's good to know. So maybe fill up your water bottle, hike up a little bit, and then if you don't see anything and the stream looks pretty clean, I'm not telling you don't have to use any kind of water purification stuff. I'm not going to pretend like I always do. But good practice if you fill your container to walk upstream a little bit and make sure there's nothing crazy in there. You know, this terrain is really steep, but in a lot of areas, like with cows, you see an area where cows have been in, and cows will oftentimes go to the bathroom in the streams they drink out of. So it's a good idea to check upstream from where you're drinking. It's also a good idea after you haven't gone very far, a few minutes, a couple of 100 yards maybe, to stop and adjust stuff. Adjust your pack, probably tighten your shoes. You want whatever you're hiking in, boots, trail runners, you want them probably quite a bit tighter than what you normally wear them. Mine right now are uncomfortably tight because I'm navigating pretty steep terrain. I don't want them to slip, and I don't want them to move back and forth on my feet over time, creating really nasty, bloody, blistered feet. So you probably want to stop and adjust that. Give your pack and your shoes and stuff enough time, maybe your belt, to kind of adjust to the situation, and then tighten everything down to where you want it, or maybe loosen it to where you want it. But after you've hiked a little bit, instead of saying, I'll stop in a couple of hours, right, and by then your feet are jacked up or you've got a raw spot worn in your back from your pack, stop after just a short time, a few minutes, and adjust it. Maybe take it off, do some adjusting. Your pack, your dog's pack, if that applies. Right, and adjust it for the terrain. When I'm going uphill and steep terrain like this, I adjust my pack different today than I did last time, if you listen to that one, where I was more or less following a river. Unless I was climbing the riverbank, it was fairly flat. At least for, northern Idaho, Montana. But stopping after just a few minutes and adjusting all your kit, all your gear, assuming you have time, that's a really good practice. Okay, here is a big one. When you're navigating terrain like this, I mentioned this last time when you're like crossing a stream, but when you're navigating some pretty gnarly terrain, you can just expect to fall, right? Expect to fall, and if you don't, you're pleasantly surprised. But one of the things in that is, I learned from an early age in fighting, keep your mouth shut. Keep your teeth clenched, right? If you do fall and whack your head pretty hard, hopefully you get a headache and that's about it, and you don't knock your teeth out. If you've ever had teeth knocked out, and I have, you quickly learn when some kind of head trauma is likely to keep your mouth shut and your teeth clenched. But maybe you haven't learned that lesson the hard way. So I'm telling you, if you're navigating some steep terrain or crossing a log, and again, expect to fall and keep that mouth shut. Good advice for a fight as well. But expect to fall. I fell many times today. And plan to fall and expect to fall in a certain way. Like, when I fall, I'm going to fall like this. And it doesn't always work out perfect, but that's a lot better than not knowing how you're probably going to fall and then landing on your tailbone and then getting a bruised or cracked tailbone. If you've ever had a bruised or cracked tailbone, it really, really is unpleasant. Probably not life-threatening, but if you got to hike out with a bruised or cracked tailbone, I was there in that situation last year in the Pacific Northwest. Really, really unpleasant. So have a plan of how you're going to fall. Like, when I fall going down the side of this mountain, I'm going to go this way. And again, if you don't, then you're pleasantly surprised. That's nice. That's a bonus. And there are times when you have to put yourself in precarious situations, precarious positions. I did today a couple of times, but you try to minimize that. You try and look and plan ahead and say, yeah, when I fall, I'll go about this far. If it's going to be a catastrophic fall, probably try to re-navigate your terrain. That's not always possible. I mean, if you want something super safe, sit at home and watch Netflix. But you try and mitigate that, right? You don't put the Lord your God to the test. When Satan tempts Jesus in the wilderness and tells him to throw himself down, he says, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test. Going adventuring is one thing. Being reckless and foolish is quite another. Don't put the Lord your God to the test. Have a plan. And plan to fall, right? Plan to fail a little bit. Hopefully it's not catastrophic. Here is another one. Wear sunglasses. Now, much of the day I didn't need sunglasses for sun, but I'm a big fan if you're in the wilderness to wear sunglasses, period. Even at night when you're hiking, I'm also a very big fan of yellow glasses. I can't recall the number of sticks I had shoved in my face today. While falling, while navigating terrain, while grabbing onto stuff. Right, the sunglasses are not just there for the sun. They're there to protect your eyes. They're eye protection. So if you want to carry clear eyes, I really like yellow and amber lenses for a lot of reasons. Mostly because, gunfighter. Yellow and amber lenses generally contrast and give a good sight picture. I like that. So I generally wear those anyway. But wearing sunglasses when you're not hiking on a trail, when you're actually out in the bush, in the backcountry, whatever you want to call it, in the wilderness, a lot of stuff can get shoved in your eye. That's bad. Speaking as somebody who's learned this lesson the hard way too, going to the hospital and having a foreign object removed from your eye is a bad day. It's one thing to get a stick shoved in your cheek or your forehead or something like that. It's quite another to get it shoved into your eye. That eye protection, even if you don't think you're going to need sunglasses, wear sunglasses. Here's another thing. I'm getting kind of chilly right now because getting fairly late, but it was pretty hot today. And here's something I may have mentioned in a desert survival episode, but if you have access to water, you're not like pinching pennies for water. Like today, there's plenty of water. Sometimes it's kind of dangerous to get to it, but there's plenty of water in lots of places. If you're hot, hopefully you're wearing long sleeves and wearing a hat. Dipping that hat and those sleeves in water can greatly cool you down, in addition to just drinking the cool water. But dipping your sleeves and your hat in water, it works the same way that sweat does. That evaporation lowers the temperature. It's a good practice to do, especially if it's really hot in the summer, which if you're listening to this shortly after being recorded, it's probably hot and in the summer. Even here, even at the top of these mountains, it was quite hot today. Here's another one. Line gear may mean nothing to you unless you were in the military, but I'll put it to you a different way. Distributing important stuff. Not just grabbing a pack with a bunch of important stuff in it, and that's it. But, I'm big on EDC. My EDC stuff pretty much stays the same. And, like, my handgun, fixed blade knife, tourniquet, map, those things stay on my EDC even when I'm carrying a pack. Because if I have to drop my pack because it comes between me falling in a catastrophic way down a mountain or losing that pack, I'm going to lose that pack, right? If me losing that pack will save my life, then I will absolutely lose and drop that pack. Or I may decide for the next part of the journey, it's just not wise to take the pack, which happened today, right? I have that stuff on my body. I also keep some other additional stuff distributed on my body, like navigation. I'm a big fan of a Bushnell backtrack. I have one on me now. I marked locations, so if I got lost, I could find my way back. I have a compass in my pack, but I have the Bushnell backtrack on my body, distributing that stuff, right? I have a way to purify water on my body. I have a way to make fire on my body. I also have those things in my pack, but I don't want them just in my pack. Again, what if I drop my pack? What if I leave my pack and I can't find it? What if I have to literally let it fall off the side of a cliff down a mountain and I never see it again? At least I'm not just standing there with my clothing, right? I have some line one gear. I have some gear on my body. So if you have a super cool fire kit in your pack, probably have something, even if it's just a lighter, in your pocket. If you have water purification systems, probably have one of them on your body. I have little small super light titanium containers that I put in, I believe, 10 of those water purification tablets, and I attach that to my fixed blade knife in my pocket. That's just not part of my EDC here in the wilderness. it's part of my EDC day to day. But you get the point. I want that stuff on my body. Also, I have what I call kind of a scout belt concept. And I have a small kind of pouch. It's about the size of a little bit bigger than a fist, probably smaller than two fists. And I clip that to my belt, not all the time, but when I'm out doing reconnaissance stuff like today, and it has more stuff in it. Might have a little bit better fire stuff, have some, 550 cord in there. A little small fishing kit. So keeping that stuff distributed, again, don't just have everything in one place. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same with ammo. A lot of people I think that conceal carry don't carry a reload. Well, very easy, especially in the kind of terrain in today, that something happens and a magazine falls out of your gun. If that's the only magazine and ammo that you have, then you have, one shot, the round in your chamber. If you have two magazines, you're probably not losing them both at the same time. So having, not all your eggs in one basket again, distributing your ammunition so it's not all in one place. Or especially today, I fell in the creek, my feet are wet. But if I had completely fallen one side in a creek, presumably the other side with the other part of the ammo would have been dry. You get the idea there. Distribution of key items. Here's another one. Pacing yourself and taking time to air out and dry out. Now, I mentioned it was hot earlier today, and you might think that I would want to stop in the shade. And that may be true in the desert Southwest, but still fairly, there's water everywhere here. So when I stopped, I made sure I stopped somewhere where I could put stuff in the sun. Lay my socks out in the sun. Lay my shoes out in the sun. Lay my pack out in the sun so it dries out. A lot less likely to get blistered and chafed and things that way. Also get some sun on my skin. Take my shirt off, right? The sun is good for you. Now that may apply less in the Mojave Desert or the Sonoran Desert because stuff dries there in the shade or not, right? It's like a giant blow dryer. One of the things I would jokingly say when people ask me what the war in Iraq was like, if you take the combat out of it, I'd say it's kind of like rolling around in the sand and then standing in front of a blow dryer for a couple of months. So in the desert, and in the desert Southwest, or if you're in the desert, that may not apply, but somewhere like this where it's wet in a lot of places, even though it's hot and sticky, if you stop, try and get some sun, right? It's good for your feet, good for your drying your kit out, drying your gear out. So even though you're hot, you still may want to stop in the sun for that reason. One thing I thought of today that didn't apply so much today, although Alexander Hamilton did carry some stuff. He has his own pack, carries his own food and some other stuff. But if you're going out in a group, right, distributing the weight so you can carry less but achieve the same things. Delegation of certain things, right? Like an e-tool, an entrenching tool, a small shovel. Probably not everybody in your bug out armada needs an e-tool, but they're really handy to have. A little small shovel is really handy to have, but you probably don't need one for every person. Probably one for a small group is fine. Likewise, a tent, right? Probably not every single person is getting their own individual tent. So delegating that stuff. Like this person gets a tent and he's going to carry a little bit of food, so he has some food in case something happens, but this other person is going to carry much more of the food. This other person is going to carry an e-tool and rope. You get the idea there. So that not everybody has to carry all the things, that they're probably only going to need one of per the group. Here's another one. I think this is important because I don't want to seem so stoic, so hardcore that you don't think that I enjoy this stuff. I really, really enjoy it. One thing I put down was be a kid And what I mean by that is don't be afraid to enjoy the little things. Not in a reckless way like a child might, but enjoy. Enjoy it, right? Enjoy drinking out of a cold stream, putting your face in a cold stream. Today I was down at the stream getting water and I saw a crawdad. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and catch him. Didn't need to. Wasn't going to fish with him or anything like that. Just for fun. Today I stumbled in quite a few patches of thimbleberries. And if you're on the East Coast, you may not know about thimbleberries. But thimbleberries, from my wife's perspective, are like the filet mignon of berries. And they don't really taste like any other berry. They also don't grow in massive amounts really close together like a blackberry does or a blueberry sometimes can. They're kind of their own unique thing, and they grow in pretty steep, rugged country, and they don't grow as densely. So they're kind of rare as far as berries go. I stumbled into several patches of them today, and I collected them for my wife. Right, that wasn't part of the mission statement. That wasn't part of the agenda, but come on, I love my wife. She likes thimbleberries. Why not collect and forage some thimbleberries? Now, they are delicious. I don't generally eat fruit. I don't generally eat sugar as part of my diet. Haven't for years. Been doing what people now call keto long before I ever heard the term keto. Just made sense to me. You eat protein and fat. That's what men eat. That's what predators eat, right? But anyway, I did try a thimbleberry today. Just to get the taste of it. Right? Delicious. I didn't swallow it. I just wanted to get the taste of it. But just a really unique and interesting taste that it's good to stop and enjoy. If you really take the time and enjoy some of those little things, those little moments, can really make it a much more pleasant experience. And this is something that also ties into like other things like military service. When everything is miserable, and I mean just really, really miserable and tough and hard, it can keep you going to enjoy some of the little things. A letter from back home. When it's the end of a long day and you get to take your boots off. And not just doing it, but really savoring that moment and enjoying it. Guys that served in the sandbox will understand this one. When you just get done with a really long, hot, miserable patrol, in that moment, you get to take your body armor off. And even though it might be 100 degrees outside, literally, when you take that body armor off and that air hits your, wet uniform from sweat, it feels amazing. Just enjoying taking that weight off and enjoying that sensation. Enjoying those little things. That's an important part of life. And remembering all the blessings come from God. All those things, all those blessings. Every breath, every sip of water, every berry. Every time I fell today and didn't die. Or, have my femur sticking out the side of my leg. That's a gift from God. Enjoy those things. Enjoy the little things. Finding joy, even in hard circumstances, is, I think, a big part of things that are often left out of like the hardcore survival type stuff. Because people that don't find any enjoyment, don't take any pleasure even in hard times, might be more inclined to give up. I don't have data to back that up, but taking joy in the little things, even in a hard circumstance, can really help you get through it. I remember during the invasion of Iraq, I hadn't showered in months. And we had made it to Baghdad, and we had taken Baghdad, or we were in the process of taking Baghdad, and there was a fountain, probably part of some city center in downtown Baghdad. It was close to the big teardrop, if anybody knows where that's at. At least that's what we called it, a big giant blue kind of teardrop looking thing. We had just invaded, destroyed, liberated, whatever your point of view is on that. And there was like this city fountain, and it was really steep. It like wasn't meant to get into. Well, I had a buddy hold the bottom of my boots, and I laid so that I could reach my head down and wash my hands and face in this fountain, which was the closest thing to a bath or a shower I had had in months. And it was amazing. I still remember it. That was circa 2003. And here we are in the year of our Lord 2023. And I still remember how awesome that was to wash my face. That was a miserable, miserable time. But that was a bright spot. And it's good to remember those kind of things and savor those things to get you through the hard times. Like literally as I'm recording this, I paused it because my 110-ish pound Rhodesian Ridgeback came to sit in my lap because it's getting chilly outside. Enjoying little moments like that are really nice. Some sustains from this. So if you listen to the last one, you'll know that I started out dehydrated. I did not start out dehydrated this time. I made sure I drank water before I went to bed last night. When I woke up at night, I made sure to drink water, and I drank quite a bit of water when my wife dropped me off on the way to the rendezvous point today, early this morning. So I was not dehydrated. I also brought a small thing and carried it in my pocket of the sugar-free, what do they call it, electrolyte powder, which I didn't really like the taste of because they make them with that fake calorie-free artificial sugar. I don't want sweet. I don't want sugar. I don't even want fake sweet. But I think the electrolytes were nice to have. I wish I could find one of those that didn't have that sweet taste. But that electrolyte powder, that's probably a sustain. Probably put one or two of those in my pack. So that's a good thing to have, especially in really, like, it got pretty hot today. Also, I took my wife's little titanium shovel. She's more into like the uber cool, ultra lightweight through backpacking kind of scene, but she had a really small titanium shovel. I mean, really small, like kind of like a garden trowel, but super lightweight because it's titanium. And I asked if I could take that, and I probably won't buy another one because we both don't need one, right? If we're both going out together, we can just take one. But that came in handy today for the obvious reasons of everybody has to go to the bathroom. And God says, you shall have an implement among your equipment, and you shall dig with it, and you shall turn and cover your refuse, right? God says that. That's part of God's instruction. Now, you can make a stick and make an implement, but that little light titanium shovel came in super handy. It also has a saw on like both sides. Now, I wouldn't use it to like cut down a tree, but I would use it to like cut through roots and things like that. And a little shovel is handy, especially if you're generally sleeping in a poncho hooch, which I like to do, for kind of hydraulic engineering on a micro level, right? If it starts to rain, you can dig a small trench around your shelter to navigate that water around going where you're sleeping to going somewhere else. A little small shovel like that to just make a couple of inch trench to divert that water around your shelter, around where you're sleeping. That can really be a game changer in a cold, wet, miserable environment. So those are probably some sustains for this trip. Improves. I like that titanium shovel a lot. I have a go-to water bottle. Thinking about when I got it, I may have had it like 15 years. It's a stainless steel water bottle. It does what it needs to do. It's still going strong after 15 years. If that is, in fact, when I bought it. Just like a Cabela's stainless steel water bottle. But seeing how sturdy and how nice that titanium shovel is, I might look at getting a titanium water bottle. Because if I don't have to carry that extra weight, why would I? A good water bottle, I think, is something that you need. Something that I use, probably one of the most used things of the day, of frequent trips, because I need to get water. I'm not a big fan of the Camelbacks. I know a lot of people are, but I don't like them for a couple of reasons. One, they can bust in your bag or on your back, which is one thing if it's hot, but quite another if it's cold. Also, you might find yourself drinking too much water and running out of water because you can't really gauge how much you've drank or how much you have left. I find it much easier to do with a metal water bottle. Not to mention, you can use it to cook in, cook meals in, make soup in, like if you shoot an animal and you have some meat, cooking, wild edibles in if it's something you need to cook. Like there's chicory around here. I didn't do it today, but if I had wanted to, if I wasn't hot in the middle of the day, I could have roasted some chicory and made some pretty decent coffee substitute, right? Can't do that with a Camelback. If I need to purify the water, I can boil the water in it. So a good metal container. But I like that titanium one so much of the shovel. It impressed me with how sturdy it was. I might look for a lightweight titanium water bottle. So that's an improve there. Maybe I'll improve that water bottle situation. That's probably it for the gear. I'm, not much of a gear junkie. I'll likely, if you don't keep up with the doings of lifestyle and things like that, my wife and I live as neo-nomads. By God's grace, hopefully, God willing, we'll soon be in southern Alaska. I'll probably need some different footwear for that, right? Probably need some different footwear. Probably not doing that in trail runners, although I don't know. But not really a gear junkie on that. Oh, one thing I did today, I didn't take down notes, but I should mention, I did change out my EDC loadout a little bit in that usually I carry good defensive ammo, right? Good hollow point expanding ammo. In general, I like Winchester Ranger T 147 grain for a lot of reasons that I've gone into in other episodes. That's more for gunfighter life. But today I carried a magazine of Full Metal Jacket, and not just any Full Metal Jacket, not round nose, but truncated cone. I like that design quite a bit for several different reasons, again, that I won't nerd out on in this podcast. But I am in the northern Idaho-Montana border, right? There are bear here. Idaho and Montana have both kinds of bear. There are wolves here. There are mountain lions here. For that kind of quarry with a 9mm, which I'm carrying today, I don't want expanding ammo. I want penetration. So that's a little bit of a switch up on the gear today. But other than that, pretty much the same EDC with the addition of that recon pouch. Here's the main thing I want to close on, men. I hope that you learn from me. I hope these are helpful to you, these after action reports. I hope the podcast as a whole is helpful to you. But really, get out and do the things. Get out and do what you can where you are with what you have. If you're into survival and prepping, then take your pack and do stuff with it. I'm going to tell a story about a friend that I love, and this is not to take away from my friend. I love him. He's a good friend of mine. He's totally into prepping. He's also really big into like the kind of Instagram, short YouTube video. Look at this thing. Isn't this cool? But I remember one time I said, okay, well, let's grab our bags and let's do a bug out exercise. And he has this massive, massive bag. And we go, I want to estimate, and I'm estimating, but I'm going to say around a mile. And he's done, right? He's done. He doesn't want to go any further. Wants to turn around. A mile. Now, it wasn't like we were on a trail. We were on some gnarly terrain. Not as gnarly as this, but he also was a guy into fitness, right? He works out. He's not an obese, couch potato kind of guy. He's into fitness, into working out, but he just didn't know because he didn't actually take his gear out and use it. Knowing my buddy, he probably had all kind of Gucci stuff in there, right? He probably had a stove in there. He probably had one of those little mini like Jetboil stoves, which I've never felt the need or felt the desire to have. He probably had all kinds of stuff in that pack in his bug out bag, which is all well and good, but he was way too far on that firepower versus mobility scale. Right? His pack should be even lighter because he doesn't routinely ruck with a pack. Even if you don't plan on making rucking part of your normal workout routine, doing it every once in a while to check your gear. Right? Because again, if you don't ruck, you probably need a lighter pack. Not going to do a lot of good to get shot with a bunch of cool gear in your bag because you can't run, you can't sprint with that bag because it's too heavy. Or you can't go more than a mile because your bag is too heavy, or you can't climb up a rock face or a boulder or, in and out of fallen timber because your bag is too big and heavy. get out and do. And also, rucking, hiking, it's a good exercise. It's good kind of for endurance, for cardiovascular stuff, for strengthening muscles. So get out and do. And it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing, right? When I was stuck in Florida for the winter because my wife wanted to be near her family to spend time with her little niece and nephew, and I love my wife, I would go on the treadmill with the pack. I would find like subdivisions that were under development and people hives that were being built, and I would ruck around there. I do what you can with what you have. But I hope this encourages you to get out and do things. And that's the main thing I guess I wanted to close on. If you enjoy this podcast, if you plan on going out and buying any kind of tactical outdoorsy kit, don't forget about this podcast, right? Hopefully you value this information and knowledge as much as the next Gucci piece of gear. And hopefully you want to support by becoming a patron. I hope you support because you believe in the podcast and you want to make godly men strong and strong men godly, and you want to really support that. That's the main reason. But also, patrons get some cool insider content. There's a Patreon group chat where I wasn't in much today because I don't have service. But when I get back to service, I plan on checking in on those guys. We talk mostly on a daily basis, except for Sabbath, in which I generally take a break from that and rest. As my wife likes to put it, thou shalt chill. Right? But most days I'm in that chat and I'm hopefully helping them, and not just me helping them, we're helping each other. A group of like-minded men. That's one thing. Also, a lot of content that I consider important content, I give them early and commercial free. And I also give them Patreon-only episodes where I'll talk about stuff that I won't talk about here with the general audience. Right? Because that's the inner circle of the tribe. I consider you guys part of the tribe, but I consider them part of the inner circle. Right? Like Jesus had his many, many disciples and followers. Then he had the 12. Right? They weren't his only followers. I consider that Patreon group like the inner circle. There's stuff that those guys are privy to that they get. And I think they should. And you should be thankful to them because they step up and support the podcast. So, for all those reasons, hopefully you'll consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Check it out when you go there. Click on the link. Most of that stuff, again, is for the patrons that are already patrons. But some of that stuff I put for good reason so everybody can see. So you can get a little bit of a taste of what's on Patreon. Go check it out. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Anyway, either way, I am humbled and blessed that you listen. I really, really appreciate, and I'm humbled that people come here for advice, for encouragement. I really am. It's a great blessing to be able to be an influence and to be able to have a podcast and help make godly men strong and strong men godly. Iron sharpening iron. I am humbled to be part of that. With that, we'll close with the tactical tip of the day and the tactical verse of the day. Tactical tip of the day. Plant identifiers on your photo app. Now, my wife actually turned me on to this. She's much more into the foraging. I'm much more into the hunting. I enjoy foraging too. I foraged quite a bit this week. But she turned me on to this, and it's Google Lens. It's like an app that you have to have service for this, but you take a bunch of pictures when you're out reconnoitering, out on recon, out doing bug out exercises, or just out and about. And you see an interesting plant. You think maybe that's edible. And you take a picture of it, and you can check it on Google Lens. Now, the Apple photo app also has this. It's like a little icon that you might see. It's like an exclamation point with a circle, and if you click on it, it might say identify the plant. And it works okay, but the Google Lens one for some reason works quite a bit better. But either one of those, if you want to get into foraging, right, and take a couple of pictures by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter is established. But if you want to get into foraging, those are really, really handy. Those, again, Google Lens is a really good one, probably the best one, but if you're listening on Apple, your Apple photo app has that function that sometimes works. Take a couple of different pictures, a couple of different plants, be sure, especially if it has a lookalike that's poisonous, If you want to kind of be more certain of that, you can type in, let's say it's lamb's quarter. You think it's lamb's quarter, and you type in lamb's quarter verses in your search engine, and it'll come up with whatever verses. And if anything that it looks like comes up and you research that and it's poisonous, be really, really sure. But if there's really nothing else that looks like it, you can be even more sure that it's okay to eat. But that Google Lens, a really good way to apply modern technology and leverage modern technology to make you a better survival, a better forager, hunter-gatherer, a neo hunter-gatherer. That's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day. Since I am literally looking at a beautiful mountain stream, kind of a continuous waterfall because the country's so steep, I'm going to recite Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Thanks for listening, men, and have a blessed day.